Have you ever noticed how some financial decisions don't start with numbers, but with a feeling? That nervous feeling in your stomach, an involuntary smile, the feeling that you're finally taking an important step in life. You walk into the dealership telling yourself it's just to look, no commitment, no pressure. But then you see the car. The color catches your eye. The design seems tailor-made for you. The salesperson opens the door. You sit in the seat, smell the new interior, hold the steering wheel, and suddenly your mind is no longer there. It's gone somewhere else. You imagine yourself arriving home, being seen by others, living a better version of yourself. Have you ever experienced this? At that very moment, almost imperceptibly, something changes. Reason begins to give way to emotion. That rational voice that usually asks about budget, planning, and future impact becomes quieter. In its place, another voice emerges, more seductive, saying that you deserve it, that you worked hard, that this is a rare opportunity. And everything starts to make sense. The installments seem smaller than they really are. The deadline seems shorter. The commitment seems light. Have you noticed how, at that moment, nobody thinks about the real weight of this decision over the next few years? The mistake isn't in liking cars. Liking cars is normal. It's human. The problem starts when desire disguises itself as an intelligent decision. When emotion takes control and makes you believe you're being rational, when in reality, you're just trying to justify a feeling. That's how many people fall into financial traps without realizing it, convinced they're making a good deal, when in fact they're just following a well-managed emotion. And the most dangerous thing is that this moment is silent. There's no alarm going off. No one clearly says, "Be careful." On the contrary, everything around you seems to collaborate to help you move forward. The phrases are carefully chosen. The environment is designed to make you comfortable, and the feeling is one of progress, of achievement. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you, especially if you've ever felt financially stuck even while earning more. Many people believe the problem lies in the car's price, but they rarely realize that the real mistake arises earlier, in the moment when emotion takes the wheel. It's there that consumer decisions begin to deviate from simple rules, like the Ford Opera 2010 rule, without the person even realizing it. Not because they don't know the rule, but because at that moment, they choose to ignore any criteria that might hinder the feeling of accomplishment. And maybe you're watching this now, thinking you'd never do something like that. Or maybe you're remembering a past purchase that, at first, seemed perfect, until it started weighing on your budget. What happens between that initial enchantment and the financial consequences is exactly what we're going to unpack from here on out. Because before talking about numbers, rules, and strategy, it's necessary to understand that specific moment when you fall in love and stop thinking. And as you listen to all this, perhaps some memory has already come to mind. Maybe a harmless visit to a car dealership, a decision that seemed small at the time, or even a feeling that's hard to explain. That mix of excitement with a slight discomfort that you ignored. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Sometimes, putting it into words helps not only you, but also other people who are going through the exact same situation and haven't realized it yet. When you comment, you transform that video into a real conversation, not a monologue. That's how this space grows, creating a community of people who think before they decide, who learn from their own mistakes and from the experiences of others. And if at any point you felt that this content made you reflect, liking the video is a simple way to say, this is important. This gesture helps YouTube show this message to more people who may be about to make the same mistake. Now, if you enjoy this type of content, which discusses money without magic formulas, focusing on the emotional side of decisions, subscribing to the channel is the best way to continue this conversation. That way, you won't miss future videos, and you'll help this project continue by bringing reflections that truly make a difference. Because everything we're talking about here is just the beginning, and there's still much to be revealed about what happens after emotion takes control. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a point that almost no one notices at the time of purchase. And curiously, it's precisely the point that is never corrected by the person on the other side of the table. The entire system was designed to speak to your emotions, not your logic. When someone says that the installment fits in their budget, that phrase isn't talking about their real life. their decisions, their financial journey. It's only talking about an isolated, fragmented number, disconnected from everything else. And that's where the hidden truth of this process lies. Notice how impact is almost never discussed. People talk about comfort, status, and deserving. They talk about how that car suits you, how it represents a new phase, a transformation. But nobody stops to show you clearly how much that decision will silently accompany you month after month, shaping future choices. Because the most dangerous cost isn't the car's value, it's the invisible commitment it creates with your income over the years. This commitment doesn't hurt in the first month. It doesn't arrive screaming. It settles in slowly. It appears when you start postponing plans, when opportunities pass you by and you feel you can't move forward, when important decisions become heavier, because a portion of your income is already committed. And at that moment, many people believe the problem was earning too little or not planning better, when in reality the mistake originated earlier, in the absence of criteria, not in a lack of money. There's a huge difference between something being possible and something being healthy. Being possible means paying the installment today. Being healthy means sustaining that decision without sacrificing freedom, peace of mind, and growth. But the discourse rarely delves into this territory. The focus is always immediate, superficial, and emotional. And when you realize this, you begin to understand that it's not an isolated mistake, but a pattern of decisions that repeat themselves in many people's lives. This is where mindset starts to make more of a difference than the rent. People with very different incomes end up trapped in the same pitfalls because they make similar decisions, guided by the same narrative. The idea that everyone does it this way, that financing is normal, that we'll adjust later. But the bill doesn't adjust itself. It demands payment. And it demands payment precisely from those who never stopped to look behind the scenes of these choices. When you start to see this, something changes. You begin to realize that it's not about denying desires, but about understanding the real impact of decisions that seem small. It's a process of maturation, almost silent, that redefines how you position yourself in relation to consumption, status, and the very idea of success. And this change in perspective opens up space for criteria that were previously ignored, criteria that protect you in the long run. Comment below, this makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because it's precisely at this point that a simple rule begins to act as an emotional brake, not to hold you back, but to protect you. When emotions run high, the 20-4-10 rule kicks in like a firm steering wheel, bringing the decision back to reality. It doesn't come with complicated speeches, it comes with clear criteria. 20% down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and up to 10% of your monthly income committed to the car. It seems too simple, and perhaps that's why it works so well. In practice, this rule interrupts the automatic script that leads so many people to sign contracts impulsively. It forces you to pause, breathe, and consider the real impact of the decision before the pen touches the paper. It's not about killing dreams. It's about preventing a fleeting dream from becoming a silent prison along the way. Because when the car demands less of your future, there's room for transformation, for more conscious choices, for a mindset that builds instead of suffocating. Notice how, when applying these criteria, some options simply cease to make sense. And this can generate discomfort at first. The feeling of, I could, but I shouldn't, is not pleasant for the ego. But that's exactly where the hidden truth of mature decisions lies. The rule isn't saying you can't have something better. It's asking if that something better respects your current reality and the path you want to take tomorrow. When you put down 20%, the purchase ceases to be a fantasy and becomes a real commitment. When you limit financing to 4 years, time stops being an anesthetic and becomes a factor of responsibility. And when you decide that the car cannot exceed 10% of your income, you protect the rest of your financial life from being swallowed up by a single choice. This changes everything. It changes how you view status. It changes your relationship with consumption. It even changes how you perceive yourself as someone in control of your own decisions. This rule forces a return to reality. It cuts through vague promises and reveals the behind-the-scenes aspects of the purchase. And, interestingly, the more you understand this, the more you realize that freedom doesn't come from what you show, but from what you preserve. The right car isn't the one that impresses at first glance. It's the one that doesn't weigh you down the following month. It's a change in mindset that transforms the buying experience into a conscious act, aligned with who you want to become over time. In this process, many people discover that the problem was never a lack of opportunity, but rather an excess of concessions made in the heat of the moment. The 20 to 4 to 10 rule doesn't push you down. It pulls you towards the center, towards decisions that respect your pace and amplify your positive long-term impact. And when you begin to see this, it becomes clear that there are still deeper layers to this conversation, revelations that only appear when emotion ceases to be the sole dictator. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a cost that almost never appears in the shop window, in the contract, or in the dealership's lively conversation. It's the invisible cost of ignoring the rules. It doesn't come in the form of a separate bill, nor does it arrive with prior notice. It manifests itself gradually, infiltrating the routine, the decisions, and even the emotional state of those who believed everything was under control. When the rule is ignored, the first thing that diminishes isn't the money itself, but the margin for choice. Little by little, you realize there's less room to invest, less energy to seize opportunities, less freedom to say yes to something that truly matters. Not because you made an irresponsible choice, but because you made an emotional choice without considering the long-term impact. The car remains beautiful and comfortable, but it begins to carry a silent weight that accompanies it each month. This weight manifests in that constant feeling of tightness. Even when income increases, it appears in the subtle anxiety that arises before the end of the month, in the discomfort of knowing that a significant portion of your effort is already committed before you even decide what to do with it. And the most curious thing is that many people don't associate this with the car. The mind creates other explanations. The cost of living has risen, times are tough, the world is unstable. But behind the scenes, that old decision continues to claim its space. Ignoring the rule doesn't just create a financial problem, it creates a permanent mental noise. It's the feeling of always running, but never truly moving forward. Working more, earning a little more, but feeling like something is always pulling you back. And it's at this point that an uncomfortable question arises, one that many people avoid asking. Did this achievement really bring about the transformation I imagine? Or did it just change the type of pressure I feel? The wrong car doesn't just take money. It takes time, energy, and clarity. It delays plans, postpones investments, and weakens future decisions. Not because it's inherently bad, but because it occupies more space than it should in your financial life. It's like carrying a heavy backpack without realizing it, until you stop and wonder why the path seems harder than it should be. This is the hidden truth that almost no one discusses. Every poorly calibrated decision today robs you of possibilities tomorrow. Not dramatically, but subtly. That trip that gets postponed, that investment that always seems too early, that feeling that you're not quite ready to take the next step. All of this accumulates, creating the impression that progress is always a little out of reach. And when that realization begins to sink in, the reflection deepens. You start to look back and realize it wasn't a single mistake, but a series of concessions made without clear criteria. The mindset changes. The perspective on consumption changes. The notion of success begins to distance itself from what is visible and approach. It's what is sustainable. Because financial freedom rarely shouts. It is built in silence, decision by decision. At this point in the conversation, many people honestly begin to wonder, is this car really worth all this money? Is it worth the anxiety, the missed opportunities, the feeling of always being on the edge? This question isn't meant to blame, but to awaken, because when you see the invisible cost, it becomes impossible to ignore that there's still a more conscious path to consider. A fine-tuning that can completely change the relationship between desire and decision. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because after seeing the invisible cost, a silent shift in thinking occurs. It's the moment when choosing with your head starts to make more sense than impressing with your ego. And this change isn't about giving up comfort or punishing yourself. It's about repositioning the car in the right place in your life. A means, not an end. A tool, not a symbol that controls you. When the decision is guided by the 24/10 rule, something curious happens. The purchase ceases to be a test of self-esteem and becomes an exercise in clarity. 20% down payment is not an obstacle. It's a filter. It separates impulse from real intention. 4 years of financing is not a limitation. It's respect for your time. And 10% of income is not conservatism, it's protection of your journey. These criteria don't diminish you. They organize your decisions. Choosing a car within this logic means understanding that life doesn't need to applaud your purchase for it to be a good one. Mature financial decisions rarely make a fuss. They don't seek external validation, don't compete for status, and don't require explanation. They simply work, and in the long run, they build something far more valuable than appearances. They build a margin of safety, peace of mind, and the freedom to choose again. There's a hidden truth here that many people only discover after making mistakes a few times. True status isn't about what you show off, but what you control. It's about waking up without anxiety, being able to invest when an opportunity arises, saying no without guilt and yes without fear. It's knowing that the car serves your life, and not that your life revolves around it. When the ego steps out of the driver's seat, the mindset changes. The perspective becomes more strategic, the decisions lighter, the impact more positive. You begin to realize that winning isn't about showing off, it's about sustaining. Sustaining choices that don't hold you back, don't silence you, don't put you in survival mode. It's a subtle but profound transformation that redefines what it means to achieve something. And perhaps that's the most important revelation of this conversation. Making discerning choices isn't failure, it's taking control of your own life. It's understanding that every decision has behind the scenes aspects, and that taking care of them is what keeps the journey steady when no one is watching. When you take that control, everything starts to align, not immediately, but consistently. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this conversation resonated with you. Maybe it wasn't about cars, but about decisions, mindset, that feeling of wanting more control and less pressure in daily life. If this content helped you see things differently, subscribing to the channel is a simple way to continue this exchange. The idea here is always the same: to talk about money calmly, clearly, and with real utility, without noise. And if you want to leave a record that you were with me until the end, write in the comments. This message was for me. I read everything, and that's what shows that this type of content is really worth continuing to create. A like also helps keep that connection alive and makes the video reach other people who may be at that exact moment of decision. There's a video over here that complements this topic and delves even deeper into this way of thinking about financial choices. Click and continue reading there.